Hi everyone! What if I told you the U.S. has been far more involved in Ukraine's war effort than it ever admitted publicly? That behind the scenes, American military advisors, drones, satellites, and even CIA officers were helping Ukraine strike deep into Russian territory, and that this partnership, vital and often successful, was also marked by strategic disagreements, internal rivalries, and moments of broken trust. Today, we dive into a New York Times investigation that pulls back the curtain on the true nature of the U.S. Ukrainian military partnership. From the sinking of the Moskva to the bruising battle for Bakhmut, and from secret CIA-backed raids to near breaking points over command decisions, this is the war behind the war. The article reveals what many of us suspected, but few could confirm. Since the first days of Russia's full-scale invasion, the U.S. and Ukraine have been conducting a deeply integrated military campaign. Inside a base in Wiesbaden, Germany, dubbed Task Force Dragon, American and Ukrainian officers collaborated daily. Their mission? Pinpoint Russian positions using satellite data, electronic signals, and intercepted communications, and then provide real-time targeting data to the Ukrainian armed forces, even for strikes inside Russian territory. This was not just intelligence sharing, this was joint warfighting. And yes, the so-called red lines of the Biden administration. According to NYT, they kept shifting. What began as a policy of support without direct involvement evolved into on-the-ground advisory teams, strategic wargaming, and permission to target Russian ships using American intelligence. Let's rewind to April 2022. Ukraine sinks the Russian missile cruiser Moskva, a seismic blow to the Black Sea Fleet. The U.S. reaction? Not celebration. Panic. Washington wasn't warned. The Ukrainians didn't notify their American partners. Worse, U.S. officials were shocked Ukraine even had the capability to hit the Moskva. According to NYT, this surprise strike strained trust, especially since Moskva was seen in Washington as a dangerous red line, not just a ship, but a symbol. From then on, the U.S. grew more cautious. And yet, the cooperation continued. Now let's talk about the 2023 counteroffensive. That massive Ukrainian push intended to break through to the Azov Sea. When Ukraine launched its 2023 counteroffensive, expectations were sky high. After a series of dramatic victories in 2022, this was meant to be the next breakthrough, a push that would fracture Russian logistics and liberate more occupied territory. Planning took place not only in Kiev, but also in Wiesbaden, where Ukrainian and American officers jointly worked through battlefield simulations and targeting strategies. The initial plan centered around a southern thrust toward Melitopol, aimed at severing Russian supply routes to Crimea. However, within Ukraine's military leadership, different operational concepts emerged. While the primary focus remained on the south, there was also a belief that a concentrated effort in the east, specifically around Bakhmut, could weaken Russian defenses and exploit enemy vulnerabilities. In the end, forces and resources were allocated across both axes, with units advancing in Zaporizhzhia and conducting operations around Bakhmut. This diversified strategy reflected both military necessity and the evolving battlefield realities. According to U.S. sources cited by the New York Times, some American officers were not immediately informed about the adjustments in operational focus. But in wartime, plans are fluid, and Ukraine's commanders were responding in real time to intelligence, terrain, and enemy movements. The counteroffensive faced significant challenges: dense minefields, fortified Russian lines, and delays in Western aid. Despite heroic efforts, Ukraine was unable to achieve a decisive territorial breakthrough. Still, our forces inflicted heavy losses on Russian units and demonstrated resilience, flexibility, and resolve. Fast forward to 2024. Ukraine launches a covert cross-border operation into Russia's Kursk region. Once again, Washington is not informed in advance. And this time, Ukraine reportedly uses coalition-provided equipment to carry out the raid, crossing a mutually agreed boundary line. The U.S. was furious. CIA officers confronted Ukraine's intelligence chief, Kirilo Budanov, warning that such operations could jeopardize continued support. According to the NYT, U.S. officials feared that if HIMARS and intelligence coverage were pulled back, Ukrainian soldiers might die. So they reluctantly continued to assist, even as trust frayed. Why did Ukraine take the risk? Zelensky later explained, occupying Russian territory gave Kyiv leverage, territory that could be bargained during future peace negotiations. In plain terms, Ukraine was trying to reshape the battlefield ahead of any potential diplomatic endgame. This investigation reveals a truth we've long known on the ground. Ukraine is not just a recipient of Western aid, we are the engine of innovation in this war. From reimagining naval warfare with unmanned sea drones to coordinating multi-domain strikes deep into occupied Crimea, and pioneering the use of battlefield AI and decentralized drone swarms. Ukraine has led the way in adapting modern technologies to 21st century combat. These are not tactics borrowed from others. They are being written by our officers, engineers, and frontline soldiers in real time. But make no mistake, none of this would be sustainable without the vital support of the United States and our allies. Intelligence sharing, precision munitions, advanced surveillance capabilities, and logistical infrastructure have been the backbone that allows Ukrainian creativity to flourish. This partnership works because each side brings what the other cannot. We bring boldness and innovation. The West brings scale, reach, and strategic depth. Together, we have reshaped the battlefield and proven that even against a larger, heavily armed aggressor, democracy can fight back and outthink. So, what do we take away from this? This report lays bare a complex truth. While Ukraine and the U.S. are strategic partners, they are not always strategically aligned. Ukraine is fighting for survival. For us, this is existential. We must make bold moves, take risks, and sometimes act without waiting for permission. The U.S., meanwhile, balances global deterrence, domestic politics, and fear of escalation. Its red lines shift slowly, and it fears direct confrontation with Russia more than we do. And yet, through disagreements and tension, this partnership has held, because at its core, it's built on shared values: freedom, sovereignty, and resistance to tyranny. This war is ours to win. And sometimes that means making hard calls. Americans watching this, Ukraine still needs you. Not just your weapons or your satellites, but your political will. Congressional delays cost lives, and trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. This is not a war of Ukraine alone. It's a front line in the global struggle between democracy and authoritarianism. And history will judge how we stood together, or fell apart, when the stakes were highest. Subscribe for more frontline insights. Like this video if you stand with Ukraine. Share this to remind the world. The war isn't over, and silence helps the aggressor.